Hello everyone, and welcome back to Not Another Mindset Show. Today we have a Q&A episode. You guys have really been enjoying these episodes, and I personally very much enjoy them as well. It's fun for me, one, because I know I'm answering questions that you are specifically asking because you specifically asked them, and two, to be honest, I don't have to do as much prep for these episodes. When I tell you, I literally take the questions and I put them into my little note section here on my phone, and then I sit down and I answer them. So it does help me a lot because, as you can imagine, having a podcast show where it is all entirely solo episodes, it takes a lot out of you. I have done over, at this point, probably approaching 120 or so guest podcast episodes on other people's shows. I was just at 100 right before I started my own show. And the purpose of me doing this show was for me to just get on and chat with you guys more in a long form content style so you can get to know me better. I can teach you more at length than I can do in, say, an Instagram reel, Instagram post, that sort of thing. But man, it's quite the undertaking to say, I'm just going to go sit in front of this camera for the next most of the week because I batch my episodes. So I'm doing 6 to 8 episodes every time I go in to do podcast recording. And of course, most of those episodes take a lot of prep too. You guys are used to me talking about research and various strategies when it comes to mindset and behavior change and psychology. And while yes, I do have a lot of it up here in my brain and I am able to riff and just keep going on a lot of content, when I'm talking about specific research studies and wanting to make sure that I include all of the information that I want to include, it takes time. It takes time to map all that stuff out. Like truly, it takes more time for me to outline an episode. Like I'm not writing scripts or anything. I'm not reading off of a teleprompter. But I still have to outline and make sure that I stay on track because if you've been listening to the show for a while, you also know I can go on tangents. It's actually currently what I'm doing as I'm talking to you right now. So got to keep myself, on track. So these episodes are fun because it is a little bit just more laid back and is probably where I feel most connected to you as my audience, as my listeners, as my people, my community, because again, like I'm answering your questions directly and it's a little just more lighthearted and fun and casual. So the questions that I am pulling these from are both from Instagram, and then also I have a form that you can fill out at any time. You can leave your name or you can leave it anonymous. In every single podcast episode in the show notes, there's a link. So after you listen to this, or anytime you listen to a podcast episode or something comes up for you with your clients or in your life and you would love to get my perspective on it, like I can't tell you the number of DMs I get of people saying like, I just love to pick your brain on this. This is your opportunity to do that. So please leave me some questions so the next Q&A episode I can answer yours. So I have a handful of questions here, variety. I went through all of the different questions I had, and I do want to make sure that there is some variety, some like personal stuff, some more mindset, coaching oriented stuff, research oriented stuff. So the first one I have here, someone asked, I would love to learn more about how you structure client check-ins to see the best results. Do you prefer Loom videos or messaging, and how often should your clients be receiving Loom videos? 1 time per week or 1 time per month? And do you like using Typeform or Google Forms or a different software? I love your content. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we're basically talking here just the software and the tech and the frequency behind client check-ins and what is quote unquote best. And what I will say first is there's a lot of different ways to go about client check-ins. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a best way. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of coaches at this point, and obviously had my own coaching team for a very long time. And I've been in the coaching space myself for a very long time, done years and years and years of one-on-one health and fitness coaching myself. And from that perspective, I've seen all different types. We're talking some people doing hour-long Zoom calls with their clients once per week, to the opposite ends of the spectrum being like there's no Loom videos. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Loom, it's a fantastic software, but it essentially does a screen recording and a video at the same time. So you can kind of have something up on your computer screen while you're recording your voice and your video over it. So people who are doing that maybe not doing that at all and just doing like instant messaging over WhatsApp or email. So kind of can run the gamut between you're only going to hear from me over email to the other side of the spectrum, again, being an hour-long Zoom call every week. So it really kind of just depends on your preference and also the type of coaching you're delivering as well, I think can make a big difference. I think for the most part that I've seen inside the health mindset coaching certification, where I'm working with coaches all the time and we're talking about client check-ins all the time, I would say what I see the most and what is probably just most common, and I think for those of you listening are going to be nodding your heads with this, is a once per week check-in with clients. And that typically looks like either an email check-in or some form of like Loom video or voice memo recording back to the clients. And then kind of going from there, if the client has questions, having some conversations back and forth. Obviously, I very much recommend asking your clients follow-up questions, and especially if we're talking about mindset and behavior change focused type of coaching in the nutrition and fitness space, or really in any space where you're doing some sort of one-on-one coaching, that leaving opportunity for there to be some sort of back and forth conversation after the fact, like after the check-in, like that's where a lot of the juiciness comes in, right? Like if you're just responding to your clients and saying, oh, I'm going to add 10 grams of carbs to your macros this week, and we're going to reduce your cardio by 10 minutes, and that's all you're saying. I mean, there's some coaching where that's fine. I'm not saying that's wrong. However, if you have clients who are struggling to stay consistent, stay motivated, stick with the plan, be adherent, what have you, that type of coaching is not going to get you very far. So on that note, I don't think that there's anything, again, that's the best. I do think at least a weekly frequency of contact with your clients is probably warranted. I think once we get after that, even if it's every 2 weeks or something, you do start to kind of like lose the connection with your clients, and 2 weeks is a long time for things to be happening. So if you're asking them to reflect on something that happened 10 days ago, that's a little bit difficult. So I do like a once per week, and then some form of ability for them to reach out if they're struggling with something in the moment, because again, it can be hard to have to reflect back on that in a formal check-in type of process. What I will say too is I'm talking nutrition and fitness coaching and like lifestyle coaching, trying to help people change their behaviors for the long term. If we're talking about something else, like for instance, the one-on-one coaching that I currently do to this day is with my business mentorship clients. So inside the Growth Collective, which is my very small business coaching container, I do some formal check-in with my people every other week, whether that is a Zoom call with me or it's a check-in that they submit and then I respond to them. And then they have access to me for questions at any other time. We have a once per month group call as well, where we all get on for 90 minutes to 2 hours and chat about what's going well, what's not going well, how we can support each other. So there's pretty frequent contact. We have a group chat too that is always popping off and I can never keep up with. And this is only with, we're talking like 8 to 10 people I usually have in the Growth Collective. So everyone's kind of like supporting each other as well as me giving that one-on-one support to each of them. So as far as how, like this person did ask, like Typeform, Google Forms, different software. In my coaching company, we always use Google Forms. So there's so many other softwares out there for coaching now. I know like things like EverFit, and I know, what's the other one? EverFit and True Coach. Those ones are probably the ones that I hear about the most these days. I know it's like I hear about all of them being used, and Apotheo is another one. I'm obviously not like sponsored by any of these. I'm just telling you what I hear. These softwares all have their like pros and cons, of course. So again, it's really just what's going to suit you and your type of coaching and how you feel best that you can deliver your results. And I would focus on that more and ask your clients, ask them what they prefer, what they want to do. I know I've worked with coaches in the past too, who give their clients a chance to choose, like, do you want me to respond to you with a video, with a voice memo, with just an email? Maybe they prefer to read things because they don't have time to sit down and watch a video. So obviously asking your clients what their preferred method for the check-ins is a great way to go about it too. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I feel like I kind of just said do whatever you want but gave you some direction there. So the next question I have is, How do you ask better questions to get better answers? So obviously this is likely coming from like a coaching context. However, this could definitely be applied in a lot of different ways. But I hear coaches say this all of the time. Like, I'm asking questions, but my clients don't respond to me, or they just answer with like a yes or a no. This can also be applied to any other relationship where you're trying to get closer with someone or better get to know them or something like that. I mean, if you're getting crappy answers, definitely don't just blame the person who's answering. Look at your questions too, because what is it? There's like some phrase that is like stupid questions get stupid answers. I don't necessarily like believe that, but I would still like kind of draw it back to if you feel like your clients are not responding in the best way or giving you a lot when you're asking those questions, look at your questions first. So the first thing I'll say is, just in general, probably try to do more open-ended questions rather than yes or no questions. If you're saying you always get short responses, I would look at your questions and see how often are you asking something outside of an yes or no question, like how did your week go? Or that's even just like a good or bad, type of answer, like a one-word response. Are your questions worded so that your clients could be just answering with one word? Or do you think that you were able to adhere to the plan well this week? Yes is the answer, or no is the answer, or no, not really, or kind of, sort of, that's not going to help you. So how can you change those questions into something that is more open-ended? Tell me a little bit about your week and how well you thought you were able to stick to the plan. It's not really a question, but you get what I'm saying. So you can just leave it more open-ended rather than it being a yes or no or a good or bad type of answer. I think something else that you can do when you're trying to ask a good question is to reflect on what that person has already shared with you. So make them feel heard. You could sort of summarize their responses in a way and say, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is this week you were struggling with XYZ and you had a tough time here, but you really excelled in this area. So I want to focus on that too. Like, that's amazing. Let's pay attention to that. So now tell me a little bit more about this and how it compares to that. You could see how you could reflect on what they're saying. They feel really heard and understood in your questions, because that's also going to warrant a more in-depth response if they feel like, wow, this person really like took into account everything I had to say, rather than just like making assumptions or asking just like off the cuff type of questions. That will definitely give you better answers. Another aspect too is just making sure you get buy-in. I talk about this inside the health mindset coaching certification a lot when we're talking about communication methods specifically, and how you can use, to some degree, permission asking. I say that in quotes because it's not like you have to ask permission every time to go in a certain direction with your clients. But especially if you're noticing that this person is pulling away, or you just haven't really got a lot of response from them, asking them first, like, hey, I would love to ask you more questions on this specific thing, because I think if we dive into that more, it will reveal kind of what's going on and I can help you better. I can be a better coach for you. Are you up for that? Is it cool if I ask you a few more questions? So now they're saying, yes, ask me questions and I will give you answers, rather than just like asking the question outright. So that can be a helpful kind of first step. One thing I do have for you is a free resource on questions. I'm just like thinking about this right now. I have literally something called the best questions to ask your clients, and it is a free resource. It's a PDF for you. I'll make sure that link is in the show notes. You go there, you just toss in your name and email, and you get the download immediately. Like, it'll show up on your screen and you can grab it. So I'll make sure that that's in there for you too. And you can kind of like peruse those questions to get a better idea of like how you could be presenting some of these things to get better answers. Okay, I need to take a mid-episode pause here to tell you about something really exciting. I'm hosting a free 3-day training series called The Coaching Code, and I really want you there. Thousands and thousands of coaches have enrolled in this 3-part series in the past, and this time, let me tell you, it is better than ever. Inside the Coaching Code, I'll be diving into specific strategies and tips that you need in order to help your clients stop self-sabotage, stick to the plan, and ultimately stick with you longer. If you enjoy my podcast, you're going to absolutely love the Coaching Code. We get started on August 14th.
So head to the show notes right now to grab the registration link and snag your free seat.
Okay. Next question. Speaking of questions, more questions for me. Qualifications to work with you in your one-on-one mentorship. Oh, this is perfect. We just talked about the Growth Collective in that first question. I want to launch a new program offer, and I think you might help me not mess it up. Here's the thing. What I will say is it is very true that if you work with a mentor or learn from someone who is doing something that you want to be doing, you are more likely to not mess things up. And don't think, though, that if you hire a mentor that you're never going to mess anything up. But that was my first thought when I got into business was I need to find someone who's already done this so they can kind of like help lead the way, because I have no freaking idea what I'm doing. So my very first large business investment was with a business mentor, and she helped me so much. I actually worked with her for 2 to 3 years. And then now things have come full circle, and I'm in a mastermind with her. So we are now like peers in the same mastermind, whereas before she was my mentor. I still definitely look up to her a lot. Like, shout out to Jill if you're listening to this. Love ya. So with that said, you're asking qualifications to work with me in a one-on-one capacity for business mentorship. And again, that is I call it the Growth Collective. That is the name of the group. It is one-on-one business mentorship with me, but it's also like a mini mastermind type of feel. So you're getting support from other coaches, other entrepreneurs in the same space. And it's so lovely. It's one of my favorite things that I do inside my business, and watching everybody grow and working with them over time it truly is very fulfilling, very rewarding. And it's so much fun. It's so much fun. So qualifications. I have learned over the years, I've been business mentoring at this point for 4 years. I have learned my sort of sweet spot, who I am best suited to help, is not someone who is a beginner and not someone who is super, super advanced, like beyond me, obviously. Like I think that makes sense for anybody. Right? You probably aren't the best mentor for someone who is already doing more and different things than you are. That's more or less like go put yourself in a mentorship group with those people, which is what I do. And that's the other beautiful thing, is finding a mentor who's also being mentored, because you're kind of getting the trickle down effect from them. Like, I use so much of what I learn inside my mastermind and I bring it into the group that I mentor. So I work best, long story short, with people who are, I say, intermediate to advanced level in business. You've already been seeing business success consistently, and you're ready to scale and try new things. And especially if you're looking to develop like programs and like online programs, products, types of things, courses, one-on-one coaching is something that I did for a very long time, built a very successful, decently large fitness coaching company, I guess, depending on like how you classify what decently large even means, but it doesn't necessarily matter at this point. But that essentially what I'm getting at here is my area of expertise is the specific areas that I have gone through and done myself. So to your point of not wanting to mess things up, I have messed things up a lot, and I can help you not make those same mistakes, and also help you navigate through anything that feels like is not going well, because I have all of that experience in the one-on-one coaching realm, in the online course realm, digital product type of space. So that's essentially really the only qualification. Most of the people I work with are in the health and fitness coaching space. I've had a couple people in like neighboring domains, very still similar to health and fitness. So, and it's great too, because if we're talking health and fitness, then everyone else in the group understands, right? So if they're saying, oh, I want to create this masterclass on reverse dieting, everyone in the group knows what that means and can support from a content perspective and also from a business perspective. So that's what you're kind of looking at there. I will leave the interest list to the Growth Collective in the show notes as well. I only open up a few spots twice per year. So one mid-year, July or so, and then at the end of the year going into the new year. And that's my biggest intake of new people. But everyone stays in the Growth Collective for at least a year. I don't think I've ever had someone only come in for 6 months. You can sign on for 6 months and then renew for another 6 months, which is what most people do. But that allows us to kind of play out a timeline in your business for a long period of time, which is really the best way to do things, is not just fly by the seat of your pants on a week to week, month to month basis, but instead go, what do I want to be doing in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months? And what do I need to do now in order to get there? So yeah, twice per year, open a handful of spots. Like I said, it's very small, 8 to 10 people max. We've had as low as 4 and as many as 12, but that 8 to 10 spot is kind of my sweet spot. So yeah, if you're looking to scale, rather than if you're listening to this and you're like, I am building my business from the ground up, I haven't even started, I'm probably not the mentor for you. But if you have seen success in your business and you're like ready to take it to the next level and try some new things and get some guidance, then I just might be your girl and we might have a good time together. So interest list, I will leave in the show notes for you on that. Next question. How important is sharing the same cultural background with those that you're coaching? I think if you share the same cultural background, it can be a great fit, because obviously that level of understanding when it comes to, a lot of times with cultures, it can really, like, food can play a really big role. Exercise, I'm thinking sometimes with different cultures that require like fasting different times per year. Actually, my very, very, very close dear friend, Priyanka, her and I were roommates for almost 5 years when I lived in North Carolina, and she is Bengali Indian. And her and I were definitely in like the throes of our like health and fitness journeys together early. Like, this was a long time ago, like 2015 to 19 and a half. Yeah. So like 4.5 years. But, oh no, it was longer than that. 2015 to 2019. Anyway, just 0% important here. But it was interesting to watch too, because with her culture, being Bengali Indian, there would be times where she would be like shouting from the bathroom down the hallway from me, like, oh my God, I just prepped all of my protein for the week. And then my mom just told me that we have this like great uncle's sister's aunt or something who passed away. And so that means we have to be vegetarian for the next 2 weeks. So certain things like that. Yes. Like, obviously, if you understand that you're in that same culture, like, that can be helpful. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but of course it's going to be helpful just because you have someone who really understands, right? I also, what comes to mind for me too is the health belief model. It's going to sound so random, but I promise this will make sense. And this is a well-validated framework for essentially better understanding how people take action in health behaviors and what motivates them to take action in these health behaviors. And this model, if you kind of think about it like a machine, there's like inputs and outputs, and the output at the end of the machine is the action, the actual health behavior. And the input at the beginning is demographic and psychosocial variables. So when we're talking about demographic and psychosocial variables that get inputted into the health belief model machine, those are things like culture and SES and gender, and all of those things really do play a role. And those things play a role then in the next kind of part of the machine. Doing my best to kind of explain this here. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll make sure that there is a diagram of the health belief model up on the screen right now. Isaiah, you got me. My amazing video editor will make sure that that is up on the screen for you guys. So that next part of the machine is your perceptions. So those demographic and psychosocial variables go into this machine, and those things influence your perceptions, which therefore influence your motivations and therefore influence your actions. So it is something you should be considering and paying attention to as a health and fitness coach. I don't think, again, personal opinion here, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary to be of the same cultural background. Something that's coming up for me too is I worked with an entire team probably 3 years ago. I brought the entire team through the health mindset coaching certification, and their team was actually very focused on different Asian cultures and being able to understand how that influences health and fitness. So it was really cool, like a very niche market. And they're super successful and absolutely crushing it and doing such amazing work. So if you wanted to niche down into like your specific culture, I think like absolutely go for it if that's the direction you want to go. Like, don't worry that you might be leaving out other people, and you could just be focusing on the culture that you know best and how to help those people the best. I think that that is a really awesome direction, but again, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Okay. Next question. 2025 world champion predictions. Okay, this is a Formula One question. Like, I know it has to be Formula One. I don't listen. I don't follow any other sport. This is the only, it's motorsport, but it's a sport, which is funny because I actually, just before I started recording this, watched the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix, and my boy, Lando Norris, won. It was his first Monaco win, and I think the first he drives for McLaren. Those of you who don't watch Formula One, don't follow it, are going to be like, can we move on to the next question? But I could stay here forever. Let me tell you about it. But he drives for McLaren, which is the team. And I think this was the first time McLaren has had a driver win the Monaco Grand Prix since like 2008 or something. So really big deal. Also, Lando's my guy. McLaren is my team. Love both drivers, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, but Lando's my boy, and he just won. So I'm very excited about that. But anyway, your question, the predictions for the World Championship. If we're talking about the drivers, I mean, I think we all know McLaren is going to take the constructors. They're going to win as a team. But right now, Oscar and Lando are kind of like neck and neck. I would obviously love to see Lando be a world champion, especially considering his last year, 2024, was the first time he's ever won a race. And for him, the next year to be a world champion would be insane. Oscar's looking really good, though. I actually think if I had to predict, not from my heart, but from my head, I would say that Oscar is going to be it. Oscar will win the world championship. So I guess we'll find out later this year if I'm correct. So next question. I won't stay there long, although I could. How did you know you wanted to study mindset and make it your career? I didn't know, actually. I did not know that this is the direction that I wanted to go. This is where I do kind of like can be a little woo-woo and just like let the universe tell you the direction you need to go, and like let the opportunities fall in front of you and take them and see where it leads you. When I was PhD shopping, we'll say, I was applying to different PhD programs. I knew that I wanted to do something in the world of health behavior change. I wanted to better understand why people know that they should eat healthy and exercise and they still aren't doing it. And as a psych student in undergrad, to me, it seemed like so much of this was psychological. However, then also being in the health and fitness space as a coach, and also being coached by different coaches, myself as a client, it just felt like that was wholly missing the mindset, not even mindset, because I didn't know what mindset was yet, but the psychological factors of it was totally missing from the space. So I wanted to pursue that question more than anything. Like, essentially, how do we help people eat well and exercise more often? How do we do that? Because clearly knowledge is not enough. So when I was looking at different programs, they ran the gamut of different realms of psychology: experimental psychology, counseling psychology, social psychology. And I came across the work at NC State, and actually think it was a friend at the time turned me on to the work that was being done at NC State from Dr. Jenny Burnett. She ended up being my PhD advisor. She was doing work on mindset, but mindset in a lot of different areas: entrepreneurship, relationships, intelligence, personality, and also recently had done some work on obesity. And so that's what really got me interested. And so I didn't know anything about mindset science. I knew nothing. However, this was really interesting to me because she was essentially explaining why people, or why they don't pick up health behaviors and what's holding them back, and mindset was a component of that. So that was very interesting to me. And when I went and interviewed at NC State, I just had so much fun with the interviews, and really just, again, this is woo-woo, but just felt really good there. Like, I felt like I needed to be there. And that is where I ended up. And I learned all about mindset science, and all of the research I did there was related to health behavior change from a mindset perspective. So yeah, mindset kind of found me. And it's just crazy to think that like this was not necessarily a direction that I chose. It just kind of, again, found me. I did end up choosing it, obviously, but would have never thought that what I did in my PhD would turn into what I'm doing today, and had built a certification for health and fitness coaches. We've certified over 800 coaches at this point. It's going to be over 900 in just a few weeks here as we wrap up the spring 2025 cohort. So yeah, my entire life revolves around mindset now. So when people ask me too, like, do you even use your PhD? I'm like, honey, I use my PhD every single day, whether it is actually like talking about mindset science, like what I do on this freaking podcast, or how I just like do business and analyze metrics and KPIs. That's very like research minded. Or when we're talking about like writing copy, or how to get attention on Instagram, or write a really good sales page. That's all psychology. So I'm using that all of the time. In fact, I am currently, as we speak, working on a behavior change science by copywriting type of course, which I'm very excited about. I have so many links for you guys in this episode. It was not my intention, but I do have a priority list for that. And I don't know, by the time that this episode comes out, the course may already be launched. So I see, as you can tell, I'm literally answering these questions on the fly, so I didn't think about this beforehand. Either way, we'll make sure that there's a link to either the priority list for the copywriting course if it's not out yet, or a link to the copywriting course if it is out. But I have never seen something like this on the market, where what I'm doing is essentially teaching you aspects of mindset science and behavior change science and how to apply it to your copywriting and your messaging. It's actually, the course is called Magnetic Messaging. So you're applying the principles of human behavior and decision-making and mindset in order to draw in more clients, make more sales with your words. Cool, right? I'm so excited. Okay. I think, yeah, I totally answered that question. Then tangents. See, told you. Okay. The final question that I have here is, what are some mindset questions that you use with yourself? This one's actually pretty easy for me because I do this a lot. There are two that come to mind right away. So if I am noticing like some negative thoughts come up, or I'm struggling with something internally, the first thing I will ask myself is, where did that thought come from? So rather than it's never random. Nothing is ever random, right? But it's not random. It's coming from somewhere. So where did that thought come from? Like, why did I have this thought? Is that related to a past situation? Is it triggering something from my past? Did someone put that in my head? Am I feeling insecure about something? Like, where did that thought come from? And then the next question is, what am I making this mean? So if there's some sort of emotion attached to a thought that you're having, you are making it mean something. It could be a happy thought, or it could be it's making you feel uncomfortable, or again, insecure or upset or sad or something. Like, what am I making this mean? If I am having these emotions based on this thought, what am I making this, if it's a situation or a thought or whatever, what am I making this current reality that I'm experiencing mean? Because we are meaning makers. And so much of that is your mindset too. Like, your mindset is really the lens that you take to see the world through and make sense of things and assign meaning to situations. So I ask myself, where did this thought come from? And what am I making this mean? And that allows me to kind of like step out of myself for a second, kind of like pull my thoughts out of my head, set them on the table, examine it, and go, okay, where'd you come from? And now what am I making you mean in this situation? And, a follow-up question could be, and like, why am I doing that? For what? For what purpose am I doing that? Because there is a purpose. There's a reason that we're doing it. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but we as humans are complex creatures, but we're also often very simple creatures in that we do things for typically one of two reasons: to solve a problem or eliminate discomfort. And sometimes that quote unquote problem solving it doesn't really make sense how we're going about solving the problem. I was actually talking to one of my students the other day about how they had a client who's just like not checking in with them very consistently. And I said, you have to remember that sometimes people are trying to solve a problem or eliminate discomfort. And in this case, the problem might be that they aren't being consistent in their health and fitness behaviors. So how are they solving that problem? They're just like not putting the responsibility on you. So they're not checking in. So they can solve the problem of them not doing things by not bringing you into the problem, or eliminate discomfort by not checking in with you so they don't have to face the fact that they're not being consistent. So kind of thinking of it in that way. Overall, again, questions that I ask myself is, where did this thought come from? What am I making this mean? And then yes, that like follow-up question of, what is the purpose of this thought? Like, what is it? What's the value behind it? What's the utility of this thought? Because there is something there. And once you can kind of better objectively make sense of all of those things, number one, it'll make you feel so much better. And you'll likely be able to understand like what needs to happen next from there. So, okay, my friends, gonna wrap it up there. Like I said, good variety of different questions in here. I really, really do enjoy these episodes, but I can't do these episodes unless you ask me questions. I'm not about to just like make up questions to ask myself, okay? I could do it, but that seems kind of lame. So don't allow me to be lame. Help me out. Help me out. Ask a question. You can honestly just DM me on Instagram, shoot me an email if you want to, if that's easier for you. But we've tried to make it as easy as possible by creating a form that you just fill out with your question. And that form is linked in the show notes. Again, please do that. I would love to hear from you so I can answer your question in the next episode. But I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you next time.